Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us Shannon Petrovich, therapist, author, coach, specializing in helping people deal with and heal from narcissist, abusive, and other toxic relationships. Her book, Out of the Fog into the Clear, Journaling to Help You Heal from Toxic Relationships. It has earned a number one Amazon bestseller status in codependency, self-help from abuse, and personal transformation. She seeks to help people identify the internal negative, self-limiting narrative. So we'll talk about all that. Let's dive into the story behind the story. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome once again to the KAJ Masterclass, this time on the Author's Voice with KAJ Shannon. So first, let's talk about your journey itself. You've been a very busy life. So how did this journey towards becoming an author happen? What was the inspiration for that? Did it just happen, or you planned it?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I really didn't want to write a book, but I wanted to share a lot of the strategies, information, and all the things that I've learned over 37 years of being a therapist. I wanted to share it with a wider audience, but I didn't want to write a book. And so I started a YouTube channel called Therapist Talks, Thrive Beyond Narcissism. And in that, I really wanted to share and help people because there are millions of people all over the world that will never have access to therapy. And yet there are a lot of the information, strategies, sort of perspectives and ways of thinking things through are things that I can share in 10, 20-minute videos. So I set out to do that. It kind of started to pick up some steam. And then I decided about 2 or 3 years in, I decided I really did need to write the book because a 10 or 20-minute video doesn't really help somebody take this toxic relationship and actually heal from it. People can even get out of the relationship and still not be okay for a long time. And so I wrote the book to be something that would be a self-help type of thing that you could take it and do the work and actually get from feeling horrible and confused and lost and even still buried in this relationship to actually healing and thriving. And that's kind of what created the book. So I sat down and wrote the book and got it out. And then since then I've been doing a lot of podcasts, and I started coaching individually and in groups. So it's all kind of steamrolled from there.
Absolutely, Shannon. So let's get straight to the book itself. Here is the book, Out of the Fog into the Clear, on the screen. So I want to understand for the audience, what is this book all about? Though nice headline, nice cover. I want to understand what is behind the cover, inside the cover.
So when we get lost in a narcissistic or other type of toxic relationship, we typically lose ourselves. We are all of our thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs get completely lost, and we are really buried in a fog of fear, obligation, and guilt. So the acronym FOG, as most people know, is fear, obligation, and guilt. And once we get lost into a relationship like that, it's hard to see clearly. It's hard to understand what's going on. And that's why people stay for a long time. The manipulative game. So we start with sort of learning how the manipulative games have messed you up and gotten you lost in the fog. And if I'm a sailor, and so the acronym and my life experiences kind of dovetailed. And so the beginning of the book, I talk about what it's like being lost in the fog, and you literally don't know which way is up, down, left, right, forward, or backward. It's terrifying to go forward because you don't know if you're going to hit something, but you can't even stay still because you don't know if something's going to hit you. So you are paralyzed in this fog. And that's what it feels like to be in a toxic relationship. You're paralyzed. You don't know if you should move forward. It's terrifying to sit still. You're just lost. So we have to, so it's a validation for starters. And then the next picture of a sailboat in the clear is how we get from lost to finding ourselves again. So we need to clear up the relationship within ourselves. We need to start to become our own best friend. So I talk a lot about that in the book, because oftentimes the manipulations and games that a toxic person plays are so um, they're just really deep and dark and weird, so that you begin to gaslight yourself. You begin to train yourself to constantly focus on them, constantly take care of them, and neglect yourself. You tend to really become trauma bonded to them, so that your emotions and even your survival mechanisms are triggered and re-triggered by the games that they're playing. And then you're kind of telling yourself, well, if I didn't do this so much, and if I did more of that, then maybe we'd be back to being happy again. And that's just not the case. When someone plays these games with you and manipulates and controls and bullies and undermines you and devalues you, that's a whole set of games that you have to see for what it is. And when you can step back and watch that circus and not get involved in it, then you can start to heal and start to separate yourself emotionally from that abusive person.
Absolutely. So, how would one know that they are in a toxic relationship? It can be, different in culture from one culture to another. So, in a general sense, how have you dealt this sensitive part into your in this book of yours?
One of the things that people should look at is how you feel in this relationship, because a lot of times I would have a client who would come to my office, and now online, saying, "Oh, I feel really anxious and depressed all the time," and thinking that that is just sort of their natural state. When, we talk about what's your life like and how are things going, and they would typically blame themselves for their marriage or their relationship not going well. And as they start to talk about the details, though, anybody would be depressed and anxious in that situation, because they are not being allowed to have their thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs. The other person's matter and theirs don't. And so if you can look at yourself and say, I feel worse than ever, I feel not good about myself, I feel like I'm going crazy, I feel anxious and depressed a lot, I don't know what to do, I feel lost in a fog, those are indications that you may be in a toxic relationship. And if you can look at that, you might have people in your life who have told you, hey, I don't like that relationship and how it's impacted you. But you say, oh no, it's not them, it's me. Or, oh no, we're working on it. Or, if you're always defending that person to your people, if they're isolating you, if they are bullying you, but then kind of flipping the script and then love bombing you, if they're constantly blaming you for all the conflict that goes on in the relationship and never owning any for themselves, you're probably in a toxic relationship. And then finding your people again and saying, hey, what do you think about this? What have you noticed? So then we have to start to suss out and to divide out, what are the rational things that have gone on, like the concrete facts that have gone on in this relationship. So we have to get really clear on the facts. When we can do that, that really helps us to disconnect that trauma bond and start to look at this rationally. Because one of the realities is that we lose our rational mind. When we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, our rational mind naturally goes offline. Because if you're getting chased by a bear down the road, you don't need your rational mind, you just got to go. So that's a natural state that we sort of drop the rational. When we're in this constant criticism and undervaluing and devaluing and bullying and this constant state, we lose our rational mind too. So we have to calm down that internal state and get into our rational mind and use that to make a good rational decision about this relationship, and then follow that rational decision and let go of the trauma bond and let that emotion go crazy even, but not go back and go back and go back just because we still feel very attached. We might even feel like we still are in love with that person, but it isn't love. If somebody is not letting you fully exist in a relationship, that's not love. You're attached to them, but that's not love. So we have to also divide that out. So calming down that emotional survival mind, making a rational decision, and then dragging our emotional mind kicking and screaming into the process of getting free.
Absolutely, Shannon. A lot of people in such relationships, they keep on wondering, I'm giving everything through the relationship. So where is the problem? What does the other person want here? Is it that they are not getting what they are wanting, or is it that they have some other twisted idea in their heads? Help us understand from that angle if you have delved that into in your book.
Yeah, it is confusing. If you are not wired that way, if you don't have those narcissistic tendencies or borderline personality tendencies, all of these things are really confusing. And that's another thing I explain. Because if you are pretty much a person who has integrity and you tell the truth and you are trustworthy and you are a good friend and you're loyal, it doesn't make sense when you run into somebody who just lies all the time and they're lost in their lies. And then when they say something, they believe it. And they could probably pass a lie detector test, because people like this tend to say something and then they buy their own narrative. So when they are that assertive, I've heard lots of clients say, well, they just have asserted this so many times, I believe them. Don't believe them. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. If it's a lie, it's a lie. And just because they say it over and over again does not make it true. It makes it a delusion that they are really married to. And that sort of indicates that they're actually more severely personality disordered than you might have already thought. If they are all about themselves and they cannot see that other people's thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs matter, that's how they are wired. And don't try to fix that. A lot of us go into these relationships thinking, I can fix that person, I can rescue them. Don't do it, because those things are hardwired from probably 6 years old. And the likelihood of change is near zero. And I do believe in change. I'm a therapist, I'm a coach, I believe in change, but you can't change that person. They may be able to change themselves, but you're not going to change them. So
Absolutely.
we have to recognize that they are different. They don't have integrity, they don't have empathy, they don't have a sense of what they could do differently. They're always blaming the others. They want to isolate you, they want to devalue you, they want to bully you, and they want to twist everything for their own selfish needs. And it can be any selfish need. It might be for ego, it might be for control, it might be just to puff themselves up. It can be all kinds of motivations. Doesn't matter. If you feel like you can't exist in that relationship, you gotta get out.
Right, right, Shannon. And how are such people outside? In a relationship, one can understand. But when you see such people outside, how do they behave outside? And why do they behave so rationally outside that others will not be able to? You will be yourself surprised that how can they be something different at home and they are different outside? Is that a capability within them, or is that they outside they use more of self-awareness, they look at some consequences?
No, they don't look at it differently. They are manipulative. And so that's another thing to really notice early in a relationship. Is this person the same with me and everybody else in their lives? If you see a person, well, first of all, if they don't introduce you to their friends and family ever, that should be a red flag. If they are different with other people than they are with you, that should be a red flag. A person who treats the waiter or the bus person badly treats people badly. A person who laughs about other people's pain is not a good person. A person who uses other people, abuses other people, and then is proud of it, laughs about it, kind of gloats about it, that's not a good person to be in relationship with. And they'll always say, oh, but I would never treat you that way. I would never blah, blah, blah. BS. If they're treating somebody badly, that comes from inside of them. If they're capable of that, walk away. So we have to recognize they often do present totally differently with these people and with those people, or they might even initially present totally differently with you, but they are showing other signs of other things to others, but then they tell you you're special. That's not special. That's you being manipulated in this moment right now. It's not going to last. You are going to be treated like they treat their worst people. If they're vengeful, that's a really big red flag. Healthy people don't take revenge. They don't go that direction when they've been slighted. They step back, they look at that, they might separate from that relationship. They don't exact revenge.
Absolutely. So, who is this book for, Shannon? And what are the solutions that you have discussed in the book?
So the book is for anybody who's been in any kind of toxic relationship. And it's interesting, over the years, more and more people have brought up in my channel, and I've done more content about even having an adult child who's your narcissistic, toxic person in your life. People who have had a narcissistic parent and they grew up with that. That's a really terrible thing to grow up with. You end up a lot of times being really self-hating internally and self-condemning internally. So that's a really big one. Obviously, partners, siblings, sometimes it could be anybody in your life that has been toxic, and that's so it's for anybody. The solutions are the acronym CLEAR. And C is clarifying, like I said, the rational clarification of what has happened in this relationship. So I talk about the games narcissists play, all the different games, and kind of clarify how that looks so that you can go, oh, yeah, that is that person. It's not about me. They brought that with them into the relationship. I didn't cause that, and I certainly can't cure it. L is the learning about things and using that logic. E is educating. A is sort of analyzing, and R is rebuilding your relationship. So about a third of the book is all about rebuilding the relationship. And that's a really critical piece because we've lost ourselves. Oftentimes people don't even know what they want anymore. They don't know what they like to do anymore. So they have to kind of step back and rebuild from the ground up. They have to rebuild relationships because they've been isolated. They have to rebuild their sense of self and their sense of what they want to do with their lives. Oftentimes they've even lost their jobs or been bankrupted by this person. So there's a lot of rebuilding that has to happen. And if we don't rebuild, what happens? We go back into another toxic relationship. So we have to really look at that and rebuild that.
Absolutely. So, Shannon, is this book also for narcissists so that they can know, okay, I am the problem, not someone else in my life? How should they evaluate themselves? How does one evaluate them that they are the problem, not someone else?
That's a good question. I think anybody can gain something from it because we've all had toxic relationships of one variety or another, even workplace and friendships, and pretty much everybody's had a toxic relationship or many. And oftentimes narcissists have been hurt. So there's kind of a phrase, hurt people, which is not always true. Some narcissists came from a very indulgent parenting situation where their parents just really never held them to task for anything. And they just praised them and adored them no matter what kind of bad behavior they engaged in. And some narcissists are from that environment. Some are from being injured. So the more so the person who has been injured. But I've also known people who are sort of in the mild to moderate narcissistic category who are open to seeing what part is theirs and can see it and hear it and go, wow, I have these toxic traits and I really don't want to keep doing this anymore. And so reading this book would be good for them because they would see what it's like from the other person's perspective, and they would also have a lot of information about the games that they've played, the impact that they've had, how they've caused this person to get lost in that fog, and how they can clean up their act.
Absolutely. And once you know, detach from the other person, from that narcissistic relationship, then how does this healing happen? People generally, it's all in the rebound that, okay, you get into another relationship, again, there is a problem. What is the best way for them in terms of the healing part? Any suggestions on this in the book?
Yeah, and that's why at the very beginning we really talk a lot about your relationship within your own mind. So we talk to ourselves about 70,000 times a day. And if all of that is very, very negative, and whether we brought that with us from childhood, from adverse events in childhood, or we've just created that because of this toxic relationship, we have to clean that up. Because if we are in that really negative self-talk all the time, what happens when you remove that person and that resonance goes and connects with another person who's toxic towards us? If we feel good about ourselves and we know who we are and we know what we're about, and that's not about, my hair looks good and I got lots of Facebook likes. It's about our character, who I am as a person. I'm, empathic and compassionate, and I care about people, and I'm honest and I'm loyal. Those are our character qualities, and that's who we really are. Our culture is really messed up about this. They think that it's all about the hair and nails or the pocketbook and the bank account, but it isn't. So when you get clarified in who you are, which I do in the book and also in my coaching, then if you meet a person who's narcissistic or toxic in any way, that kind of bounces off of you and you notice it right away and you're like, oh no, I'm not getting connected to this person. And you can also look around you and go, oh wow, I didn't realize how this friendship is a lot like that thing. And I'm going to get done with this friendship too. Or, man, that came from my parents and I need to heal from that as well. So we have to recognize internally and heal internally, and then the rest of it comes naturally.
Absolutely, Shannon. So, this book, any other book in the pipeline, Shannon? Any other thing that you are doing you want to tell the world about?
Well, I have dovetailed off into some coaching because some people can take this book and heal. Some people need that support and encouragement with coaching. So healfromtoxicrelationships.com is my coaching site, and there's individual and group available. So that's another thing I'm doing. I don't have another book in the pipeline yet. I'm busy. But I do have some ideas for sure. And I'll definitely let you know when one comes out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in a nutshell, what would you want readers of your book? What insight, what message from this book?
Learn to notice who you are and what you're about, and start to take care of you. We have to notice all the different ways we placate, people please, and peace keep. And those are the ways we undermine ourselves. So that isn't coming from outside. We bring that with us into a relationship. And sometimes we set a toxic relationship in motion by not fully showing up. So if I show up and I'm constantly people pleasing in this new relationship, and then I realize I'm getting really depressed and anxious, the first thing I need to do is like check myself and say, wow, I never expressed that. I don't like it when you do this. I need more space and time for myself. I want to spend time with my family, and I don't like it when you run them down. So first of all, we got to own our own stuff. And then we have to communicate that and then see what happens. Sometimes the other person's like, oh, I didn't know that. And they're all about it. Other times, if they escalate and they're more tantrumy than before, then you know that's a toxic relationship. So show up for yourself, express yourself, see what happens, take care of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn from you about all this, and also from your book. And to just for a recall, what is the best? A lot of people who want to connect with you. What is the best way for them to do so?
So the nofoggydays.com is my website that has my book. It's kind of a landing page for the book, but it also has a link for my coaching site. So nofoggydays.com is the best connector to all of it. And my book's on Amazon and Kindle. So you can get that there. And yeah, that's it.
Wonderful, wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.